B2s, those were the exceptions. And remember, we talked about those on the contract. Exceptions, comprehensive land use, plan, zoning, restrictions and matters appearing on a plat, oil, gas, and mineral rights of record, unplatted public utility easements of record, taxes, and assumed mortgages. Now, this is what your buyer should look at, okay? They don't need to concentrate on the B1, the requirements. Settlement agent is taking care of those. What they need to look at is the exceptions and marketability. Am I comfortable going through this closing? So I'm going to again use my house as an example. So because of where my house is located, I have a 20-foot setback, okay, which means I can't build anything in that setback. So I knew I wanted to put in a swimming pool. I also knew that my pool wasn't going to be really big because I could only build so far out because of that setback. Again, that could be a marketable title issue for the buyer. The buyer might say, you know what, this home isn't just going to work for me. Maybe they're buying, we had some people in Michigan when I was up there that bought a beautiful 6-bedroom home. And their intention was to use it as a group home for adults. Bought the property, started working on it. They're building a ramp, so that people can get up because they might be disabled. And the neighbor comes over and he says, oh, when are you folks moving in? And the person said, well, we're not moving in. We bought this to build an adult living home. And the neighbor said, oh, well, you can't do that because this area is zoned single-family residences only. And because they didn't know, they bought the wrong property. So really important, again, for your buyer to look. At one time, I lived in Colorado. Lots of oil and gas out there. And so maybe I just bought a property because, you know what, I wanted to be like Judd Clampett and be an oil tycoon, only to find out that I don't have the oil rights. Any new subdivision you're going to find that the developer has retained the oil, gas, and mineral rights. Now, they can't come on your property and actively drill, but they have the rights to anything found there. They also do what we call fracking, which means although I can't go on your property, I can go underground. So really need to have your buyer understand what exceptions are going to appear. So we'll go to the first one, which are the standard exceptions. So the very first one says defects, liens, encumbrances, and adverse claims, subject to the effective date, but prior to the date that the proposed insured. Again, what this is saying is, Chris, you need to do an update. You need to find out if there's anything else out there before we actually do the closing. The second standard exception is rights, interest, and claims of party in possession of the land not shown by the public records. And we will have the seller execute what's called an owner's or a seller's affidavit. And when they do and they say there are no other parties or interests or rights, then we will delete that exception. The next one is any encroachment, encumbrance, violation, variation, or adverse circumstance affecting the title that would be disclosed by an accurate and complete land survey of the land. So we get a survey, we're going to remove that exception. We may put back some exceptions of things we found on the survey. This always becomes an issue for cash buyers who choose not to get a survey. And then that standard exception there remains on the property. And then about a year later, they contact us, the underwriter, and they say, we want to file a claim because there's an issue with our property lot lines. And we say, no, because you didn't get a survey and we did not delete that exception. So really important for people who are buying property without the benefit of a survey that is not going to go away. And we are not going to insure if they have any further survey issues. The next standard exception talks about what? Notice of commencement. And it says any lien for services, labor, or materials in connection with improvements, repairs, or renovations. So again, this one deals with the notice of commencement and the termination of the notice of commencement. The next one is any dispute as to the boundaries caused by a change in the location of water. So we all know that water moves. When I lived in Colorado, we had the Platte Valley River, and the Platte Valley River moved every year depending on how much snow we got in the mountains. You got more snow, Platte Valley River's bigger. So it may say you own to the water's edge, and the water's edge may have moved in or out. Then we have the standard exception for mineral rights again. Who owns the mineral rights? And again, many, many times it will be a previous owner, and I would always caution you that if it's a relatively new development, the developer or the builder may have obtained the original mineral rights. The next one is the standard exceptions for taxes and assessments. And again, it says we accept out future taxes. Remember, title insurance is the only insurance that protects you for what has happened rather than what will happen. You buy car insurance, life insurance, health insurance. It always protects you for what will happen. Title insurance protects you for what has happened. So we say there are no current or past taxes due, but we're not responsible for payment of any future taxes. Then you're going to get into the property-specific exceptions. So here is a provision of plat of wilderness acres. So not only is there building and use restrictions, but the plat itself might have restrictions of what you can and can't do on the property. Remember, when they plat the land, that's when they set out where each lot's going to be. That's where they set out the easements for the use of public utilities. Long before they put a house on there, they have platted all of that onto the property. Here's the easement. So there's an easement for the public utilities. Most of our easements run underground. So again, remember, that's been done at the very beginning before they put the house on. I show this one because this is a really, really old exception, but it is on many old properties. And it has to do with the fact that you cannot discriminate based on race, color, creed, religion, national origin, marital status, or anything else. So when you think about exceptions, you're going to have two types. You're going to have the standard exceptions, and you're going to have the specific exceptions that have to do with that property, which again are building and use restrictions, plat and zoning restrictions, oil, gas, and mineral rights, setbacks, easements, right-of-way, access. All of that is going to be disclosed under the exceptions. And that's, again, really the part that the people, your buyers, should be looking at. What are the exceptions? What am I not going to be able to do, or what can I do with the property? So if we go to the very last slide, that's kind of the wrap-up, Chris, and I don't know if anybody had any questions or concerns or anything else I might be able to answer.
And I love the last slide where, you kind of break it down to where it's Schedule A is actual facts, Schedule B1 is clear to close, and then Schedule B2, buyer notification. So I think that's a great way to kind of wrap it all up to, understanding the commitment.